Yes, looks like we're live. Um, Dude, I swear, every time I try to go live, it always gives me like a weird, like, I don't even know if it's feedback. I don't know what it is, but it always like buffers for a second, so I always have to check. But everything looks good, so we are going to get started in a few minutes. But yeah, it feels good to be back. It feels I have to maybe work my channel around differently or my schedule. So because it feels like I don't know, Wednesday, Friday, it feels like I'm gone for too long. So maybe I'll try to throw another one in there. But what's up, Channel Static? How's it going, man? Do you finish Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man? I hope you did. It's been a while. Unless you're a slow reader. I'm a very fast reader, but that just means that I don't get to spend as much time with books I like. So it's I feel like there's pros and cons of reading style and there's definitely certain details that I miss because I'm not spending as much time with them. I'm not taking notes. I like to expose myself to as many ideas as possible, and that's really my style of things. And then I recall a lot of it. But yeah, how's everything going with you? This first video I have is The Lonely Poet. A look at Rainier Maria Rilke. I only know how to say his last name. I probably said the other names wrong. This is from this video. Like I could tell it's gonna be good. You could tell they put in more effort than I do because they have music and they put subtitles. So it's definitely a hard book. Uh, where I tell people to start with James Joyce is always Dubliners because in Dubliners you can kind of see what he's trying to do with the rest of his works, but it's a very concrete story. So you kind of get an essence of who he is as a writer and what he's trying to say and what he's trying to capture. And they're very short stories. They're somewhat concise. And I would compare Ulysses to a combination of every single Dubliner story at once for a much longer period of time. And Joyce is very tricky because he's someone you have to be patient with, and he's someone that you really have to devote a lot of time to. But the people that do, they swear by it. So not really like I have a respect for him, but I like to think of it as Borges thinks of it that Ulysses is a book to be admired, not to be read, in saying that it's truly a marvel of literature. It really is. It's one of the most impressive things ever written. But does that make it one of my favorites? It's certainly an interesting book. It's certainly an experience I've had reading a book. Do I like it? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. There was a chapter where I was very much enthralled with it, but the rest of it, I was like, take it or leave it. But yeah, you'll have to try Dubliners next. I have it right here. There's dust on it. It's a very short book. It's like 150 pages. The last one is very intense to say the least, and it's actually based off a true story. It's called The Dead. But yeah, it's a good book.
Have you ever felt a deep connection to words, a sense of resonance that transcends time
It's definitely AI.
and space?
Mail
If
it to you.
so, then you're not alone. Rainer Maria Rilke, a name synonymous with poetic beauty and profound insight, has touched the hearts of countless readers.
All right, I can't deal with the AI voice. I'm sorry. We'll go into Dante. You know what? I'll read Rilke. I'll read some poems before we go further.
Okay, good.
This was another name. So this is from the Book of Hours by Rilke. I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I may not complete this last one, but I give myself to it. I circle around God, around the primordial tower. I've been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know. Am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song? And I think this is probably maybe my favorite by him. I don't know. I wonder how much better it is in the original German because he does an A B B rhyme scheme a lot of times. This book doesn't rhyme. Yeah, I wanted to give it a chance, but like it wasn't it, there's AI videos that I can somewhat tolerate, but that one was just the choice of voice. Unless the guy like has a really choppy style of reading, but it feels like popcorn reading where like your friend is like illiterate and it was like there's no flow to it. What's up? That's insane. How's it going? The poets have scattered you. The storm ripped through the stammering. I want to gather you up again in a vessel that makes you glad. I wander in a thousand winds that you are churning and bring back everything I find. The blind man needed you as a cup, the servant concealed you. The beggar held you out as I passed. You see, I am one who likes to look for things. I am one who barely noticed, like a shepherd, comes up from behind. One who dreams of making you complete and in that way completes himself. Obviously, he's talking about God, but the thing about Rilke is that he has a few ideas that I really sort of resonate with a lot, and the one that recurred to me a lot through reading the Book of Hours, especially, was that everything we do is in service of something greater. Everything we do is in service of God and a higher power, and that when you do something, you're doing something onto Him, and it's just to think about it that way is it's always inspiring because it takes away the when you're like, oh, I don't want to do this or I don't want to help out this person, but then you think about it like, what if that was me? And it always brings me back to that Schopenhauer idea of this art thou, that all empathy derives from the idea that you're not just yourself, you're also everything else in the universe. God speaks to each of us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are words we dimly hear. You sent out beyond your recall to go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand. This beautifully puts the necessity of there's this idea you'll see recurring. I think Heraclitus is the first to put it into words, but the necessity for bad, necessity for things to go wrong, the necessity for things to not be under your control because without the give and take, without the push and pull, there's not really a point to go on. It's our mistakes, it's our pitfalls, it's our failure that makes any meaning, any purpose in life. And without those sorts of things, then we really don't have a basis to balance ourselves off of. And especially this point here that I want to really reiterate. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. And this reminds me of that King Solomon. I don't know if it's a proverb or just a story, but where King Solomon has the ring that says, "This too shall pass." And the whole point of the story is that there's a ring that will make a rich, powerful, and happy man sad, and a destitute man happy. And it's the idea that everything is impermanent. It's the idea that everything is in flux. Only as a child am I awake and able to trust that after every fear and every night I will behold you again. However often I get lost, however far my thinking strays, I know you will be here, right here, time trembling around you. To me, it is as if I were once infant, boy, man, and more. I feel that only as it circles is abundance found. I thank you, deep power that works me ever more lightly in ways I can't make out. The day's labor grows simple now, and like a holy face held in my dark hands. This reminds me almost of that part of the Tao Te Ching that says something along the lines of oh man, I'm gonna butcher it. I don't remember the exact quotes, but something along the lines of those who seek to find will never find it because what you're looking for you already have. And what Rilke's talking about is like a return to innocence, a return to curiosity. You think about times when you were inspired and how easy it was to go through life, how fun it was, and you were learning things and you were experiencing things, and everything in your way was just bending to your will because you didn't take it serious. You didn't face the world and say, oh, I can't do this, or oh, I'm not good at this or that. You just did things. You just approached things. You had that curiosity, you had that fire for life, that you had that lust for life, and it's because you didn't put that seriousness onto things. And I think Rilke really captures that very well. All right, we will go to this Professor Zhang video because I just read Dante's Inferno. I'm gonna get through Purgatorio and Paradiso. I don't know how to say it. I don't speak Italian, but I'm going to get through those two in the very near future. But I'm assuming you can't spoil it. It's basically collective understandings that we have about Dante. I feel like Dante's kind of synonymous with the ideas of heaven and hell, and it's almost kind of co-opted in a way the Christian mythos and kind of how Paradise Lost changed the idea of original sin and kind of collectively adapted the way that we view it. I think Dante did that as well. So I don't think I'm going to spoil it for
Good
myself
morning.
here.
So today we do Dante, and Dante really is the height of civilization. It does not get better than Dante.
I certainly see this. To me, reading Dante, I could see why it inspired so many people because it has so many interesting elements to it. It's great poetry. I'm assuming it's so much better than the original Italian. It has rich references. It talks about people of the day. It talks about these mythic figures such as Odysseus or Caesar or Brutus is there, Judas is there. There's pretty much anyone you can think of in Greek, Roman, or Italian history are all there. And it's very interesting to see how he kind of plays between the mundane and the mythic. I think the books that resonate with me the most are the ones that are able to do that.
Um, I've taught Dante for 3 years now. This is my third time teaching Dante. And what's amazing about it is that all students love Dante. But also, each time I teach Dante, I'm able to discover new insights about Dante that I didn't realize before.
Two of my favorite writers ever literally consumed themselves with Dante for years and years of their life. Joyce did it as well, but because Joyce was schooled by the Jesuits and then kind of deconstructed everything they taught him. It's very funny in a sense, but Borges absolutely devoured Dante and loved Dante, and William Blake, who's currently my favorite writer, I would have to say, or I think I'm inspired the most by him currently. Blake literally spent the final years of his life teaching himself Italian so that he could read Dante in its original form. And he began to, so Blake wasn't just an author, he wasn't just a poet, he also illustrated things and he would write on these oh, I wish I had a good example of it. I don't None of my books have the drawings in them, but he would have these drawings on these bronze plates, and he also had these sketches, and he began to sketch all of the scenes of Dante's Inferno. And he didn't get to finish it, but I really should check him out because now that I have read Dante, it's going to mean a whole lot more.
My theory is that Dante is someone you can spend your entire life studying, and you will never truly understand his power, his truth, his beauty. Okay, so we will spend 2 classes on Dante today and next Tuesday, and this will end.
When you're reading it, you can really see the layers of allegory. That there's a very simple story but then you start to see the names and the references, and then those are things that you could research. And then it could go even deeper because he uses very vivid imagery. He has very concise points that he's trying to make with each thing, and you could tell that there's some sort of numerology behind it too, because the works are 34 chapters, 33 chapters, and 33 chapters, making it a perfect 100 chapters. There's definitely something with the lines. I bet there's some gematria in it as well.
The first semester. Dante is extremely complicated. I can only give you a glimpse into how wonderful he is these next two classes. All right. So let me give you a quick introduction into Dante. All right. So his book, his of poetry is called the Commedia, the comedy. It's not called the Divine Comedy. Divine Comedy is something that we caught later on.
So basically, Dante wrote this and had to go into hiding. And I can't remember if it was after his death or if he was still alive. But basically, a certain pope really loved it and was like, okay, now this is the Divine Comedy. I'm sure he's going to say this, but it's also not a comedy in the way we think of a comedy. Like to us, a comedy means like a funny movie, but it's a comedy in the sense of its style. Like think about the Greek tragedies, think about the Shakespearean tragedies, and then you have the Shakespearean comedies. It doesn't mean it's necessarily funny. It's just the structure of the story. It means something different than we think it to mean. What's up, X4YZ? What do you mean finally? Was it that long before? I feel like I don't know if I've said maybe I should make a post on my channel somewhere, but I've been streaming every Wednesday, Friday. I've been consistent with that, at least for the last few weeks. I feel like I've been pretty good with that. Um, but yeah, it's good to see you here, man. Because I remember you saying last time I streamed that you had just got here as I was ending it, but
Okay, he first referred to it as the Commedia. Why is it called the comedy? Well, because in writing epics, there are two styles. There's the tragic or high, and there's the comic or low. Tragic high means that it usually deals with gods and kings, and it's written in extremely sophisticated style.
there's also some sort of twist usually. I may be speaking out of turn, but every tragedy I've read, there's always some reveal. There's always some irony. You always see where it's going to end. And then you think about the earlier lines of the play or the earlier lines of the story, and you find out exactly what the character meant. So, think of the famous monologue from Hamlet, "To be or not to be." Should I seek revenge that will ultimately lead to my downfall, or should I just live a life of peace and a life of luxury? And what should I do? And you see the decision he's going to make, and then you see that, in fact, he was right. He knew it was going to happen, but he did it anyway.
Comic low means that it deals with ordinary people and written in a common vernacular. Um, at this at this period in European history, this is the year 1308 to 1321. Okay, those are the 13 years that he spends writing the comedy.
Oh, wow. I thought it was 1600s. I thought it was around the time of Spinoza. That's way earlier than I thought it was. Okay. That makes a whole lot more sense then, why he references the Greeks and the Romans because it's much closer to his history and definitely shaped more of their worldview in the sense of the stories and the myths that they carried with them.
And he will die after he finishes it. Um, at this point in European history, the high language is Latin. And what Dante does, which is very interesting, is he chooses to write it in Tuscan. And this is, of course, the local language of Florence.
So the thing about Latin was that it was only the priests would would write in it. So this is somewhat heretical already because I don't know the exact time of Martin Luther, but there was always this control over interpreting the Bible. There was always this control of making stories about the Bible. And those sorts of things. This was seen as very, very taboo in the time. It's almost like Cicero when he wrote the letter to Mark Antony and basically debased the most powerful man in the world. Like you know something bad's going to happen, but you need to do it anyway. And it's almost something heroic in what Dante was doing because he was trying to break the paradigm, trying to break the consensus and in some way inspire something higher. Like, I've read the Bible, I've read Dante, and they come from a very similar. There's something at the baseline. You could see that Dante took the same inspiration that the Bible took. It's
Florence, where he is from.
the highest form of
And
creativity, the highest
because
form
the
of artistry.
Commedia is so wonderfully produced, Tuscan will become the official language of the Italian peninsula. Okay? So today in Italy, they speak the Tuscan dialect of the language.
That's actually pretty cool.
The Divine Comedy, it is an epic divided into three structures. Dante goes on a spiritual journey into the cosmos.
So he goes to hell, purgatory, then heaven. That's how it's split up. I don't. I'm sure he's going to use the actual
In
words.
order to seek truth, to seek God. He starts off with a midlife crisis. And so he has a guy named Virgil who takes him through Inferno.
Virgil wrote the Iliad. No, Virgil wrote the Aeneid. Good thing I caught that. He wrote the Aeneid, which was the epic. They didn't have any of their own kind of culture. They just copied what the Greeks did and tried to emulate it. And really, that's what the Romans were best at, is that they took the best ideas of different civilizations and were kind of good at streamlining them. Think of Rome as a corporation and that it was able to mass produce things. It had good bureaucracy, it had good structure, and it was able to see and pick out the best ideas and then kind of take them for their own. But like any corporation, once it gets too large, it becomes too big to succeed, and inevitably the bureaucracy kind of forces it to crumble.
Okay? And then they go to purgatory. And then he goes to paradise. Paradise is heaven, Inferno is hell, and purgatory is the land, the mountain, in between the Inferno and paradise.
Am I gonna do more horizontal lives? You mean vertical? Please tell me you're like half asleep or something. Come on, X4YZ, man. I know what you're talking about, the vertical lives. I don't like them. It's not as fun. Like, if I do the vertical lives, it feels like it's just like the same unfunny jokes recycled, and it's just like people try to troll me, it doesn't work, and then like you know what I mean? It just feels like the same conversation every time, and it never really goes anywhere interesting. I think these are more fun for me at least. I mean, obviously these are more informative, so it's less entertainment. I need to find a way to balance it though. I need to find a way where I can be more entertaining. I was thinking to myself, I was like, if I had someone to talk to, like it would be much easier if I need to find somebody that I could either co-host something with or get guests at some point. I think once this gets more viewers, I'll definitely be able to invite people and people would want to show up, but that's certainly the thing is it doesn't necessarily grow your channel because think where the views are coming from because basically on YouTube you have three audiences. You have people that watch your videos, you have people that watch your lives, and you have people that watch shorts. And you could pretty much count on people that like your videos are going to probably like your live streams if you're any good at it. And people that like your live streams probably going to like your videos as well because they're still coming to see you. With shorts, you know what I mean? Like shorts don't really generate any sort of like long-term traffic or any sort of engaged viewer, maybe once in a blue moon, but for the vast majority of short view, I don't think it's like You know what I mean? I want people interested in ideas. I don't want people that are interested in ideas that are bite-sized information that don't want to watch a long form thing. You know what I mean? Like there's certainly a strategy and I certainly see what you're saying, but I don't know. I'm not about short-term solutions. I'd rather not be as big and have people that were actually interested in things I was saying versus just, mass producing things. I think that's like a big mistake. Like think of like corporations like they try to do something different and they forget what works for them. Like what works for me is that I can speak off of the top of my brain. I can just free flow and I can go into interesting topics, especially if I have something to focus on. So, that's something most people can't do. Whereas if I just do a vertical live, it feels like I kind of lose the most interesting element of what I have to say. Horizontal lives are only for subscribers. I mean, you could say that, but it's also like I don't do them consistently. So if I did them more consistently, they get more impressions and then they would become larger and it's like a snowball effect. So I see what you're saying, but I think it's a give and take. I know what you mean. I've tried a bunch of different things and none of it's worked. So like maybe it works a little bit better, but I also enjoy doing this more. I think this is more fun. And like in my mind, like what's the most fun for me is what people want to see the most. You know what I mean? Like I want people enjoying the stuff as much, if not more, as me, more than me. But I also want to be the best I can be. And how am I going to do something well if I don't enjoy doing it? I've never been good at faking it. I've never been good at hiding my emotions. And like you know what I mean? I want to be doing something I want to do. I don't want to, you know, get good at something I don't feel a passion for.
Today we will look at the very ending of the Divine Comedy, Canto 33. And I want to set up the poem, okay, give you some context and some background. Dante is in paradise, and he's trying to figure out the spiritual truth underlying the universe. And then, as he goes on this journey, he concludes his journey by meeting God. Okay? But the problem with God is no one knows what it is. It's a mystery. It's the biggest mystery in the universe. What is God? God is there, right there, but no one knows what it is. God is surrounded by a heavenly host. These are angels that have proved themselves.
So I haven't read this part yet. So this is completely new to me, and I'm interested to see where it goes because I mean you have the likes of Blake studying this stuff for years. There's certainly something in here. There's certainly something interesting.
Worthy to be around God. And these include people like Mary, the mother of Jesus, as well as Rachel and Leah, who we learn about when we did the Hebrew Bible. And they have absolutely no idea who God is either. Okay? They're in a place called the Imperium. And Dante is being guided by a man named Bernard, an angel. Okay, Saint Bernard. And to the left is God. And he is this pristine ball of light. No one knows what it is. Not even God knows what it is. And over here is the host. Okay? And at the very center is Mary. What is amazing about the Divine Comedy is how Dante restructures Christian theology.
And the interesting thing about this is like think about like the was it the nine layers of hell and there's a lot of things from the Divine Comedy that are kind of taken and put into actual Christian theology. And the funniest way I've heard it described is like it's like it would be like if fan fiction became actual religion. Like that's essentially what it was.
Remember, in Christian theology, Jesus is the epicenter. But in Dante's rendering of Christian theology, Mary is at the center. And the reason why is, ask yourself this question: is it a greater miracle that a God could come to earth and die for our sins? Or is it a greater miracle that a mortal woman is able to give birth to a God? Okay? And this is
I mean, I think it's kind of the same. Like it's like comparing apples to oranges. It's like they're their own thing.
something that, if you think about it, it's kind of shocking and bewildering. And that's what happens during the Divine Comedy. There are two
You just said be wilder. That's that's like when you read a word that you've never heard said and you say it completely wrong.
literary devices that Dante will use throughout the Divine Comedy.
I'm
The
only
first is the
laughing
idea of
because I know I do that all the time.
paradox. Think of paradox as a puzzle. Okay? What is the hand? What is the sound of one hand clapping? Okay, a paradox. A truth that seems like a contradiction. He will use this.
I think paradoxes are the most interesting ideas in philosophy, and I think there's so much to be learned through paradox because you can't there's no such thing as an absolute solution. Um, my favorite paradox probably is you can never step in the same river twice because the instant that you stepped in the river, if you try to replicate that, the river has changed and so has the man. So, what are we perceiving? What is the reality that we're viewing? Is anything that we see, is that solid, or is it in some way becoming different? Is it in some way decaying? Is it in some way being born anew? And to me, that idea is something that I continually come back to. And this is something that I feel like a lot of like thought has gotten away from, especially in our modern day and age. It's the Hegelian dialectic. We want a simple answer. We want a simple solution. We want to point the finger at someone. We want to say that this person is the cause of all my problems when it's maybe that person did something to you, but you could have been a little bit better. And I think there's something that we need to start returning to, and this is why I advocate really for the return to, reading both nonfiction and fiction. I think that's something that I really need to start reiterating more and more, and that, you know, it's one thing to learn stuff, but it's another to be able to apply it in unique ways. And that's what so many of us miss because we're either super right brain people or super left brain people. Think about how school kind of breaks the creative people and the analytical people apart. You have the band people, you have the art people, and you have the science people, the math people, the logical people. And really what it should be is it should be a balance of those things. Think of the Renaissance man, think of the Renaissance painters, think of, the people that created the Gothic churches, the marvels of the world that we still look at and we're like, this was built hundreds of years ago and it took a very long time to create, but it is a masterpiece. Think the church, the architecture is fundamentally sound, but not just that it's fundamentally sound, but it's also aesthetically pleasing. And it's because you had a architect who was both an architect and an artist. And this is really the missing link in a lot of people's lives is that they have one but not the other. You need the balance of both sides. If you're too far to one side, if you're too far to any extreme, then you're never going to be able to follow the middle path. It's not enough to be all high and mighty. It's not enough to be on your high horse because then you miss the fact that you can't impart your will onto other people and you can't tell other people how to live because they're not you versus you can't go out there and do whatever you want because that means that you're being an asshole to other people. So it's like you need to be able to balance things. It's finding balance in your life that's really going to allow you to live the best life. And how do we do this if we can't do it in our own head? How do we do this if we can't impart into our lives both the need for creativity and the need for order? Order out of chaos. It's the yin yang. It's the push pull. I try to repeat these themes as much as possible because I really want people to pick up on the themes. It's not so much what I'm saying that's important, but what the themes that I continually repeat that I'm trying to get across because some of these things I need to say 100 times before they even make sense to me. So I know it's not going to make sense to other people because if I can't even understand what I'm trying to say, then certainly other people can't. everything has a missing link when you think about it. What do you mean by that? Are you saying it's like the inverse of there's not a rule without an exception? Were you saying an idea kind of similar to that? Because that's the other thing about the world is that you can always straw man every argument. Every single law that's on the books always has some sort of exception. It doesn't even have to be just laws on the books. It could be the way you live your life. You're like, oh, well, I don't drink, but I just smoke. It's like, and your entire reason for not drinking is that you want to be health conscious, but you're smoking cigarettes. Like, you know what I mean? It's like there's always copes. There's always drawbacks. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything in this world that you take comes with some sort of responsibility, comes with some sort of trade-off. And the more you see the world like this, it really stops you from being so overtly like my way or the highway. And I think the more we can get away from that, the better off we're going to be.
all the time. And the other is structure. Okay? The Divine Comedy, it is mathematically precise. It is brilliant. It is 100 cantos, and there's so much mathematics within the Divine Comedy.
I knew it. You could tell by reading it. And again, this is a translation too, so it's going to be altered. But you can tell there's something in here. All the pages are all kind of same. You could really see when you're reading it, like there's some structure, there's some gematria, there's definitely something symbolic in it, but I've only read it once, so I'm not going to get into those kind of details. Those are like the 10th or the 50th or the 100th reading. And the thing about this is it's not that long, so you could certainly go back through it. It's not like Ulysses where it's just you can't even get anything from it. Like I read the Inferno pretty casually, and I feel like I really got a lot of the gist of it, and it's certainly something that I'm going to return to.
So, to use a metaphor, you can see Divine Comedy as almost as an intellectual jigsaw puzzle. The human mind does not like contradictions. The human mind does not like paradoxes. So what happens is this: if you are to engage with Divine Comedy, you are you become enthralled in it.
I can certainly see that because, well, I think a part of us hates paradox. But again, everything that you outwardly project, inwardly you are also creating a shadow. So like think about people that rebel against justice and rebel against the laws and are actively in revolution. The first thing they do when that revolution is successful is they install a new tyrannical government. And it's because you can't get away from human nature. And it's the same thing. People that like order, they also love chaos. That shadow is really urging for an imperfect answer. And the more order we seek, the more chaos we're really looking for. When I was the most disciplined person in my life, that's when I would make the most impulsive decisions. It's a very weird way of how this works. So I don't necessarily like that definite statement, but I see where he's coming from in terms of our philosophy and our belief systems. It's very difficult to have a belief system if you have some sort of contradiction, if you have some sort of hypocrisy. I think Walt Whitman put it best is that of course I contradict myself. I'm made up of a lot of multitudes, and of these multitudes certainly will contradict. And he somewhat accepting the nature of humanity is contradiction. You know, you love your freedom, but what did it take to get your freedom? It means that somebody had to go to war for your freedom. Somebody had to fight for your freedom. And did that not exact some sort of retribution on that other person? Did they not lose their freedom in sake of yours? This is really what Nietzsche was getting at when he said all morality is contradictory. Because, what creates our society? What creates our society where people don't go out and kill each other? It's the fear of violence. If we didn't have police, do you think everyone would be sane and rational and not take advantage of each other. Maybe you're optimistic and say yes. I would say no, but I personally wouldn't go out and do anything, but I don't. There's certain people that just have a screw loose.
You
I
become
certainly have a
obsessed
screw loose, but not in that way. Thankfully, I'm not
with
violent.
it. And then what happens is
We're
your
all
mind
crazy in
will
our own ways, and my kind of crazy is I love reading very obscure books and becoming obsessed with them and then trying to tell people about how great these books are. Fear is the key. Yeah, I think I mean, think about even how we interpret original sin or we interpret the devil. The devil doesn't force Eve to eat the fruit. He convinces her. He convinces her because he makes her insecure and makes her somewhat aware of her, lesser state than God and says, well, you could do this. He created fear and anxiety. Fear is the number one tool of the devil. Without fear of the devil can't get you to do anything. If you're absolute in your faith, and it doesn't even have to be a theological argument. If you're absolute in your faith, if you're absolute in your conviction, you're not afraid, and you act without fear, then of course you're going to succeed. But it's when you become anxious, when you become fearful, it's when you start thinking of the worst case scenario where you're going to fall, where you're going to inevitably fail because you already gave yourself the out. I mean, once you conquer your fears, I'm not talking about like your rational fears, like your fear of snakes or your fear of spiders or your fear of heights, but like once you conquer that fear of your need to be liked by others, you will one, immediately be liked by more people because you're more authentic. And two, your life is no longer bounded by the dictates of people, the dictates of the collective, and your life is so much better. Like fear is ultimately the mind killer, as Dune puts it. When you're afraid, your mind paralyzes. When you're afraid, your mind is captured and it is not capable of great thought. Attachments come from fear of not having them. Yeah. No, there's certainly that. It's like who who cares about money more, a man that has no money or a man that has a lot of money? It's obviously the man that has a lot of money because he's so attached to it. It's become so much of who he is, and if he loses it, who is he? That's why you see so many people that lose it all, that it's so destructive to them, and they always think about what could have been, where you have a person that really doesn't have anything, and it's not as big of a deal for them. It's very weird how these things kind of work, and you see them universally.
slowly over time, all by itself. You actually don't have to do anything, okay? Your mind will start to unravel these paradoxes and create a new truth of the universe.
In I'm actually gonna do a video on this book, probably tomorrow, maybe Friday. I don't know what's gonna come out, but um, this book has a bunch of exercises to get you to think differently, and the one in chapter one is very interesting because I think it's chapter one. No, it's chapter two. I'll actually read it right now. Okay. Sit in a room where you will not be disturbed for a half hour and begin thinking. I am sitting in this room doing this exercise because, and list as many of the causes as you can think of. For instance, you are doing this exercise because obviously you read about it in this book. Why did you buy this book? Did someone recommend it? How did that person come into your life? If if you just picked the book up in a store, why did you happen to be in just that store on just that day? Why do you read books of this sort on psychology, consciousness, evolution, etc.? How did you get interested in those fields? Who turned you on and how long ago? What factors in your childhood inclined you to be interested in these subjects later? Why are you doing this exercise in this room and not elsewhere? Why did you buy or rent this house or apartment? Why are you in this city and not another? Why on this continent and not another? Why are you here at all? That is, how did your parents meet? Did they consciously decide to have a child, or did you happen to know, or you were an accident? What cities were they born in? In different cities, why did they move in space time so that their paths would intersect? And again, this is something that goes on and on. And this sounds like something weird. This sounds like something, you know, a useless exercise, but like every time I've done this, it becomes very weird because it becomes this simple question of why am I here? Why am I reading this book? Or why am I doing this exercise to thinking about the entire existence of everything? And every time I've done this, I've had a different outcome. I've come to a different place. And I've had a different outlook on things. And it kind of it's very weird because this exercise is something that takes you from a very mundane topic to sort of a mythical one. And I love the way he does this, and it's very similar to what Professor Zhang is talking about. Is that the more you think about something, and the more you break it down, and the more you think about these paradoxes and these questions that really don't have an answer to it, the more it inspires you to kind of come up with a solution. And that's really what great poetry does. Is that it makes you read in between the lines. It gives you a hypothetical, it gives you a set of beliefs or an image or an idea or some sort of topic to think about, and it forces you to evoke something in you that is creative, that is divine, that is beyond a normal, I gotta tie my shoes, or I gotta go to the bathroom, or I gotta eat food, I'm hungry. It takes you away from these more baseline instincts and puts you into a almost divine form of thinking. It's truly amazing. But
Okay? And
we got way off
so
topic.
we are talking about
We're
the
not gonna finish this
creation
video, by the way.
for the Divine
I
Comedy
can tell because we are already 45 minutes into the stream and we're 8 minutes in.
of a new mind for humanity. If Homer was the father of of Greek civilization, then Dante is the father of modern European civilization. And the reason why is the Divine Comedy, because it is a jigsaw puzzle that will unravel the truths of the universe. It becomes an intellectual blueprint for three major movements in Europe. The first
I could certainly see this. I wonder I wonder what they are, but it's certainly one of them was romanticism because all the romantic poets I've read have been very much inspired by
is the
Dante.
Renaissance. Remember, the Renaissance starts in Florence, right? Second is the Protestant Reformation, a religious revolution against the Catholic Church. And the third is the Scientific Revolution. Okay? And I will show you today why that's the case.
Sonic?
How
Maybe he's talking about the Enlightenment? I wonder.
implanted or imprinted in the poetry are the seeds of these three major revolutions. All right. Okay. Any questions so far? Before we look at Divine Comedy. All right. Doug, could you okay. So first thing to know about Divine Comedy is that it is part of a literary genre called apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature just means God reveals the truth to us through a prophet or a poet.
I wonder if I've read anything else like that. Let me look up that apocalyptic literature. Actually, I definitely have Blake. Blake is certainly Blake's Jerusalem. It's saying parts of the Bible. Okay, it's given a lot of religious text. That's not what I'm looking for. Because obviously you could point to the Bible, obviously you could point to various other
Okay? So this is
mythologies
Ezekiel,
and find it,
which is
but
one of the earliest books of the Hebrew Bible. And this really starts the tradition. And so what
because
happens is Ezekiel, he
Dante's not necessarily a secular work, but you don't have to be a Christian to read it. Because he doesn't even use Christian mythology. He uses Greek and Roman mythology, which I see why he's doing it because he's doing it to kind of get away from the church doctrine and kind of, be unbounded by some of the collective archetypes and collective unconscious ideas about certain symbols. But it's
is an
just interesting.
Israelite prophet, and he goes to heaven, where he meets all these monsters and demons and angels. And he meets God himself. And then God gives him a scroll puts it in his mouth, says, eat it. And he eats it and returns to earth to tell the Israelites the words of God. And so this starts the idea that a prophet is someone who speaks the word of God. Okay? He said to me, this is God, Yahweh. O mortal, eat what is offered to you. Eat this scroll and go. Speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth and he gave me the scroll to eat. In my mouth, it was as sweet as honey. Okay? So this is the idea of the apocryphal tradition. What Dante will do is completely overturn this tradition. Okay?
I wonder what you mean by that.
Okay.
I guess we'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Next slide. All right. So before we look at Divine Comedy, let's review Augustine. Because as we discussed previously, Augustine, the city of God, is what starts the...
Do I have this? No, I do not have this. I thought I did. I always mix up St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas. I have this giant ass selected writings of Thomas Aquinas. And I'm always like, I'm gonna read this, but I don't know, like I feel like it's one of those things that I'd rather just read the Bible first, because the Bible has poetry, the Bible has its own interpretations, and I feel like I'm gonna gain a lot more from that. Whereas to me, like the strict doctrinal things are kind of, it takes these ideas that are, everlasting, and puts them into a time period, puts them into a lens, into a worldview that, I think is in a lot of ways restricting, and I think in a lot of ways not as exciting. I mean, you could see in my choice of books I like reading that I don't like ideas that are bounded. I don't like ideas that try to put a nice tight bow on things, because I think they're imperfect. I think you could always poke holes in them. When you operate in the worldly sense of ideas, then you can always come up with a worldly argument. When you operate in the divine ideas, it's pretty difficult to poke holes in them. Like, even if I did read Thomas Aquinas or St. Augustine or any of these other writers, like, the basic ideas of Christ, the basic teachings of Christ that put no God above me and love your neighbor as if they were yourself. Like, I think those ideas really, if you just carry that through your life, like that's 95% of it there. Now, maybe reading other books and reading other texts, like, that will help you come up with a more definite idea of what that means, and how to go about approaching that, and how to go about applying that, and perhaps more interesting and poetic explanations of that. But I don't think morality gets more complex than that. I think that really sums up a lot of it. I mean, again, it's Schopenhauer's idea of this art thou. What you're doing unto others is what you're doing to yourself. But the Bible says, I wish I knew scripture better, but there's the part that goes, what you're doing unto others, what you're doing unto the lowest of people, you're also doing unto me, your Lord. And that's something that, like, there's these little ideas that stick out to me and that really resonate with me, and I don't know what it is. It speaks to me in a way that the doctrinal things don't hit at, because I don't think you can come up with an absolute for this world. I don't think you can come up with an absolute set of rules that will ever in any way encompass the way things are. And that's what these more doctrinal things get away from, and that's what Dante does not. Dante tackles these difficult questions, these things that we need to use both sides of our brain to get at.
Dark Ages, right? Because of the way that the world is presented. Okay? So let's look at a few quotes from the City of God to remind ourselves of what the mentality of the Dark Ages was. First, when man lives by the standard of man and not by the standard of God, he is like the devil. Okay? And the idea here is that the devil is within us. We must constantly fight against our own nature if we are to be with God. Okay? Second is,
I think the devil is always tempting us, and we choose to listen. That sort of idea. It's not that the devil makes us do anything. It's that we succumb to our own lesser nature. But in some way, this is the way I like to think of original sin, and this is not at all an accepted idea. This is just my own interpretation, but it's the fact that we have original sin that makes life worthwhile. Because if things were perfect, then things would be boring. If you got everything you ever wanted, then it wouldn't mean anything. I use this example a lot. I'm going to use it again, but let's say in a year you're going to win the lottery. Maybe that would feel great, but would it feel as good as if you reached your goal in a year and made the same amount of money and actually earned it? And I think the second option is so much more fulfilling because when you work to something and you earn it and you fail and you get knocked down and you have to pick yourself up and you have to learn from it and you have to continually fail and fight that urge to give up and keep going and keep pushing and finally succeed. And in that moment, it's going to feel so much better than if it was just handed to you. And that's essentially what I see original sin as. It's the idea that we can redeem ourselves. It's the idea that we're imperfect, but we're perfectly imperfect because how else can we learn what forgiveness is? How else can we learn what faith is if we're not tested? It's just read Kierkegaard. He put it way better than I can.
Now,
I love Kierkegaard's ideas, but I hate reading them as well because he'll say something so profound, and then he like goes on for about 60 pages, and I'm like, dude, you got me in the first sentence. You didn't need all this background. You didn't need to qualify it. Who are you trying to convince with this? It's a loop. What's a loop?
could anything but pride have been the start of the evil will?
You're talking about like reincarnation, is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about like existence as a whole? That like there's no such thing as an end. That you just go into a new cycle of things. That you have to face more challenges. That you can't rest on your past laurels. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about like you die and you're reborn? I'm interested.
And the idea here is if left to our own devices, we will strive to be like God. Pride in the city of God is used almost synonymously like the word ego, okay? Basically, who we are. We humans are born proud and will strive for godhood if we are allowed to, okay? Third is, his was a venial transgression when he refused to desert his wife's companion. So he's talking about the story of Adam and Eve. Eve was clearly the disobedient one, right? But Adam,
Yeah, to which one? I said two things and you said yeah. It was literally never ends, but you were here since the beginning. I mean, I don't like to me reincarnation is kind of boring because it's like if you did have past lives, like okay. I don't know. I don't really see the significance in reincarnation. I like maybe it's true, but like I don't know. I think a lot of people dwell on that idea and it kind of gives them this idea that there's a second chance and it stops you from facing the battles that you're facing. I read somewhere that you know, if you take the easy way out in Minecraft, we'll say, you'll be reborn in the exact same circumstances to face that same fate because you have to face these challenges one way or another. You can't get away from them. And that's an interesting idea to me. Um, but I don't know because there's a part of me that somewhat believes in the Blakean idea of things and that we're all fractured consciousness, somewhat of a non-duality. It certainly makes sense. There's all these sorts of debates about it. But again, it's like there's this weird, tell me if this is just me that notices this, but there's this weird obsession with mortality. there's this weird idea that faith is all about what happens when we die. When my idea of faith or my idea of existence is like my focus is not death. My focus is not reincarnation. My focus is not heaven. My focus is on, am I being the best person I can be right now? Am I doing everything I can do right now? Am I living up to the ultimate mythic image that I have in my head of God or of Jesus or whatever it is that you aspire to be? Like, are you doing that right now? Because if you're not, then you're not living up to the ideal. You're not living up to the ideals that you said that you would. Like, there's this focus on heaven. There's this focus that, if I do all these things and if I just am faithful and if I have good works and also I'll go to heaven. It's like, it's like doing charity for the sake of, for the sake of public relations. When a corporation does charity, do you give them any credit or you just say that, well, one, they want to look good for people around them, they want to get the goodwill of the people, and two, it's a tax write-off versus somebody that gives all that they have because they don't need possessions because they want to help other people. And I think the second one is what I try to emphasize in my life.
Why did he eat the fruit?
Faith
Because he
is
didn't want to
completely
abandon
that, like the afterlife. I don't think so.
Eve. Therefore, love is sin. Okay? If
Oh, you're saying people think faith is about heaven. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I think faith is so much more. I think faith is having courage in what you're doing and conviction and knowing that whatever you face, it does not matter because this is not the world of God. This is the world of Satan. This is the mundane. We wanna be righteous in our mythic existence, not in our mundane existence. What does it matter if you have a successful career, if you had to sacrifice your morality for it? What is much more important is your soul. And too many people on a daily basis give up their soul for the sake of comfort, give up their soul for the sake of conformity. Nowadays, faith has become a fear. Well, that's another tool of the devil. Think about it. Like if the devil didn't exist, if people weren't afraid, then most people wouldn't go to church. It's just a control system. I mean, most of these ideas start off in a good place, but like there's such a shame and a guilt associated with things. Like I remember when I was younger, before I went to my first confession, like for weeks and for months, I was like trying to think of every bad thing I ever did. And like what kind of psychological damage did that do to me? Like dwelling on every wrong I had and thinking about every time that I upset somebody or I hurt somebody. And like, it just brought those feelings of I wasn't good enough into that moment and made me think about them. And it didn't absolve me of anything because I told a priest and he kind of just shrugged it off and he didn't, you know what I mean? Where if I had just said, you know what, I did these things and I'm gonna be better, I think that would have been so much healthier for me. But it is what it is. You can only look back at these things and
you love, you will commit sin. You cannot trust love.
do something differently.
It is because Adam loved Eve that he ate the fruit and condemned humanity. Okay? Although the will derives its existence as a nature from its creation by God, its falling away from its true being is due to its creation out of nothing. Its creation out of nothing. So the question then is, if God created us, why are we so bad? And the answer is, because God created us out of dust. He created us out of nothing. That's why we are so flawed. Okay? Again, we are a failed science experiment.
And again, I feel like even here he's saying these like there's like a guilt to being born. There's like this idea that it's wrong for existing. And I think that's the exact wrong way of looking at it. Um, you could certainly see with like some nicer interpretations of Christ that this is kind of once he dies, we're all forgiven, and then we are given the opportunity to redeem ourselves. Everything comes down to fear. Fear is what keeps the cycle running. It's so fascinating to me how when we have nothing, fear was always there. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like Where does fear come from? Fear comes from importance. When you think something's important and when you think something has consequences, then you are afraid. You know, think of like a presentation that meant nothing, but you were stressed out about it and you were stumbling over your words and you forgot all the preparation, all the work you did. Think of a sporting event that, in the grand scheme of things, like really means nothing in the course of your life, but you were so worried about it that you fumbled and you didn't do as good as you should have. It's because we put importance into things. It's because we think that these things define us. In truth, nobody cares as much as we care. Nobody's gonna remember. The only person that's gonna remember is us, and even the things that we do wrong, we're eventually gonna forget. Like, I don't know how old everyone's watching is, but like it hasn't even been 10 years since, yeah, it's been 10 years since I was in high school. But like, I can't remember the things that would stress me out in high school. But to me, they were the most important things ever. And like, why don't you take that bird's eye view with a lot of the stuff you're stressing out about? In 10 years, it's gonna matter. Okay, in 10 years, it might matter. Well, what about 20 years? What about 30 years? What about 50 years? What about 100 years? When everyone forgets, when you're literally just a picture in an old photo album and your family, or maybe nobody even remembers you. Like, nobody's judging the things you did because nobody even remembers. But you're judging yourself for what you're doing right now. It's a very weird when you start breaking down things in this way and you start liberating yourself from the idea of fear. I think a lot of things we worry about is just us worrying for the sake of worrying. When you put importance into things, then you put an expectation, and when you have expectation, you can't help but let yourself down. And it's this you'll really learn this if you read a lot of books about creativity, is that creativity comes from action. If I'm writing something, I can't I don't know how to direct. Like, if I say I'm going to write 80 pages today and I put that hard deadline, then I have the expectation that I have to do this thing. Versus if I say, you know what, I have this amount of time. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty creative. Let's just see what I am able to write. I might write 80 pages. I might do what I set out to do, but it's going to be so much better because I didn't put expectations, because I didn't force it. This is somewhat a Jungian idea, but any sort of force you put in your life is going to have drastic consequences in the grand scheme of things. Is this overthinking? You feel like you're overthinking? Well, we're overthinking about overthinking because, let's face it, we all overthink. We all stress out about things that don't matter, but we're breaking it down and we're overthinking about things and we're trying to change the way we interpret things. We're trying to change the way that we view these things. You know what I mean? Because like you can't really stop your brain. You can't really shut it off unless you want to. I shouldn't say this. This is a joke. Unless you want to bang your head against the wall 1,000 times, you can't stop your brain from thinking. What's up, Tara? That's awesome that you've been listening. Am I making sense or no? Are you saying you're listening because I'm saying a lot of bullshit right now? Sometimes I say these things and I'm like, I don't know if anyone gets it, but I get it. And sometimes that's enough for me. But sometimes I wish people would clarify if I'm making any sense at all. Because I think I'm saying something interesting. But then I'm like, I look at people's faces when I'm having a conversation, they completely lost me. Take everything I say with a grain of salt because your brain might not work in the same way as me. But to me, what I'm saying makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm also inspired by a man that saw angels in the trees. So, like, I may not be the greatest example of making sense. But Seneca said this, and I think I'll play the video because it's probably been like 10, 15 minutes since I played the video. But how do you not give importance to things, though? We make sense in our own ways. Yes, yes. That's a very good way of putting it. You don't give importance to things by, okay, so like think about an exam. I have a big exam coming up. Like the more I worry about the end result, the more I worry about passing, the more I think about the consequences if I don't pass, the more in my own head I have given myself that out. I've given myself that excuse. I've given myself that stress. And the less I can think about actually doing it. I put more than enough preparation in. I should pass. I've studied. I've done everything I should do. I'm on pace. I'm on track. I'm doing good. All the practice exams are good. But when the time comes, I just need to do that thing. Okay? It's that simple, but it's also very difficult. But what you need to start thinking of is, why does it matter if I fail? Is it really so bad as I think it is? And you almost have to break it down because Seneca said this idea, and it's always stuck with me. We suffer more in our own minds than we do in reality. So what's the worst case scenario if I fail? Well, I spent a little bit of money. It's not money that is, it's a chunk of change, but in the grand scheme of my life, I can make it back. My parents are going to be disappointed. They're going to say stuff, but they've been disappointed in me before. I'm going to be disappointed. Cool. I've been disappointed in myself before. Every time I have a major setback, I always sulk for a day or two. I always feel bad about myself. And then something in me, a fire is lit. I get a temporary jolt of inspiration. And it's the insights I get from these periods that have really been the biggest catalyst in my life. So in fact, it's a good thing. And whenever you're able to break down things that you're worried about into these things, and you're able to lower the level of significance on your life, you're able to lower the importance. You might not be able to get over all of it, but I want you to start thinking of your life in this way. Conversations say, well, this person liked me, this person liked me, and guess what? They didn't like me because I was thinking about if they liked me or not instead of just being myself. You know what? People are going to love you or hate you regardless of what you do. And once you accept that fact, then nothing can harm you in a social setting. Okay? Like social anxiety is one of the most crippling things. And it's as simple as just saying, I am who I am. I'm not going to be anyone else because I don't enjoy being anyone else. When I'm myself, I enjoy it. And if I act like somebody else and people like me for that, then it's not going to be good. I just have to accept the fact that that person's not going to like me. That person, for whatever reason, they just, there's something in them that I remind them of someone they don't like, and it's okay. It's okay. And once we start lowering the consequences that we're associating with our actions, your life's unburdened. You're not here to live up to others' expectations. Yes. Emerson said it best. Um, I shouldn't have checked my phone. I got completely sidetracked. Emerson said it best. We live in a world that seeks conformity, and to be yourself is the greatest achievement. I think that's the perfect way to put it. That even if the entire crowd is telling you that you're wrong, if you still believe that you're right and you stick with that, that is the most important thing to do. That to conform is to die because that version of yourself is no longer being expressed. You will never be happy living your life as someone else. And something that I used to say a lot, I don't say it as much anymore because it's not as relevant to my current life, but look at your life. Look at the things you do on a daily basis. Look at the decisions you made in the past few years. Look at the huge decisions you made. Were those things that you did for you? And I want you to be really honest with yourself. Were those things that you did for you, or were those things that you did for someone else? And I'm at the point where I'm starting to say that more often than not, the decisions I make are for me. But 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, certainly none of those things I did were for me. Everything I did was to please my parents, to please this idea of being a respectable individual, to please this pressure that I felt to make something of myself. And the saddest thing is you'll realize that all this outward pressure, literally all this outward pressure, in the end, what are you seeking? Seeking a nice car, nice house, status, wealth, material things, pretty woman. What's the end goal of this? Because I promise you could get all this stuff and it could still feel hollow. What are you hoping to gain from it? Deep down, spiritually, what are you seeking? It's the saddest thing ever. What you're looking for is that if I get all these things, if I'm a success to society, then maybe when I look in the mirror, I will actually like myself. That's what it is. That's what all worldly pursuits end up being, is that you will finally accept yourself if you make something of yourself. And the saddest thing is it never works. Unless there's some meaning behind it, unless there's some purpose behind it, unless you're actively and actually inspired by what you do, no worldly thing will ever bring you happiness. Unless it's the byproduct of something that really, really, really gets you up out of bed every day. I only think about the end, not about the journey. It makes it so easy to live. I think it's only about the end. The journey doesn't matter at all. That's the complete opposite. Okay, you're right in a sense. Like if you focus on the end goal and don't worry about where you are right now and keep the end in mind and don't be discouraged by what you see and don't be discouraged by the facts, then you're right. But if you're neglecting the moment and not enjoying the moment, then you're doing it wrong. So if you're the first way, then you're correct. Because the only way to access creativity is to believe that you can do it today, see it in your mind, see it done, and allow your unconscious, allow your creative juices and forces to connect the dots. That's creativity in a nutshell. That's what every great creative will summarize it as. And if that's what you're doing, I agree with you. But if you are focusing on the end goal and saying, I will be happy when I have this, that's the wrong way to do it. Because all you're going to find that way is just hollowness, emptiness. If you're obsessed with a goal and you need it so badly and you want it so badly, think of it like a woman. You tell a girl, I need you, I need this, I can't do without you, this. Like when you're needy, you're not wanted. When you don't want something, then you need it. It's this yin yang, it's this push pull. It's the weirdest thing ever. But you will get exactly what you want when you no longer want it. For most of my life, I really just wanted my dad to say he was proud of me. And then when I no longer needed that sort of satisfaction, when I was confident in myself, guess what he said to me? This fucking asshole. I needed it my entire life. I needed to feel good about myself entire life. I needed to know that I was good enough. And when I no longer needed it, he was like, I'm proud of you. I'm like, you mother. You couldn't say this to me when I was younger, when I actually needed to hear this. It's the same thing with your friends. When you're going through a rough time, when you don't know where to go, maybe they're there for you. They'll probably be there for you, but they're not going to say the thing that you want to hear until you no longer need it. People will support you when you no longer need their help. Definitely thinking about the end all the time. Of the journey, there's no end. What are you laughing at me? I mean, the truth is there's no end though. So like I think it's good to think about the state you want to be in and try to recapture that feeling and think about how you would feel and then act with that conviction, act with that experience, act from that frame of mind. But I think we're way too concerned with the end result. You know what I mean? Uh, obviously like a goal of mine would to be, you know, thousands and thousands of people in the chat and I can't see it, it's moving so fast, but like if that's my goal and that's what I think about while I'm doing this, then I forget that I have fun doing this. You know what I mean? And I'm putting this gap where I think, well, I'll only be happy when this happens. And I miss the complete point. You know, it's not the mountaintop that we reminisce about. It's that hard moment that we overcome that is the most satisfying. It's that moment when we thought we were going to give up and we kept pushing, that we look back on and we say, those were the good times. You know, it's think about like have you ever talked to a rich person that like they weren't born rich and they always reminisce about the period in their life where they were fighting, where they were working their way up as the greatest period. That's because the journey is the experience. The journey is what we're looking for. It's not the end goal that brings us happiness, it's the struggle. As Tolkien said, not all who wander are lost. You know, you're meant to go through things, you're meant to face things. Nietzsche's one of Nietzsche's favorite sayings was "Amor fati," love your fate, love everything that happens to you because it builds you up to the strength that you need to face your future challenges. You know, life doesn't get easier, you just get better at dealing with it. You know, the wisdom of old age benefits you because you have had those experiences, you know what to do, and you know you can overcome them because you've overcome things in the past. You miss all the beautiful sights on your way to the mountaintop if you're only focused on the end. Yes. Yeah, Nietzsche said something very similar. He's saying something along the lines of the tourists are so focused on the mountaintop that they miss the scenes. But I think you said it just as well. I feel like I'm not looking for happiness, it's suffering that makes you happy. But yeah, dude, what is happiness? Like, is happiness this cathartic state that's going to just overcome you when you finally achieve things? Like, dude, I've done very like I've done things in my life that I should be happy for, but I felt nothing when it happened. But what meant more to me were the little moments, were the things that I didn't think I could do that I did anyway, or the mistakes I made that I look back on and I'm like, you know what? If I didn't make that mistake, I wouldn't be here. You know, I owe all of my success, all of the things I've done in my life, every experience I have, I owe to my downfalls. There's something beautiful about suffering. Yeah, there really is. I mean, there's a certain necessity of suffering for a human being to be happy. You know, think about the people that have had a silver spoon their whole life, and you know, this is like a classic story of like a very rich kid, and he goes to college and he makes a mistake, and then he gets bailed out, and you know, eventually everyone just gives up on him because he never had to learn the hard way. If everything's always handed to you, then you're never going to become a well-rounded, well-adjusted person because you didn't suffer. There's a certain necessity of suffering for happiness. Every time I search for happiness, I end up suffering. Who hurt you, man? Khalil Gibran said it perfectly. Every sorrow deepens your joy. Every time you experience pain, it allows you to experience pleasure that much more because you have something to contrast it against. You know, without the downturns in life, the upturns don't mean as much. Dude, I have not played this video so
We see then that the two cities were created by two kinds of love. The earthly city was created by self-love, reaching the point of contempt for God. The heavenly city by the love of God. Okay? When we love ourselves, we create evil. When we love God,
what he's talking about is it's not loving yourself in the, it's a very simple way of putting it. When you love yourself above God, think of the idea of pride, this the sin of pride. That what does pride mean in the Bible? It means that I did this, God didn't do this. That I am great, that I can do anything. But think in every success, you're lucky. You made a great YouTube video and it blew up, but there's plenty of really good YouTube videos that, not from my channel, I'm talking about other people's channels, but there's plenty of videos that people put a lot of effort into, that they really pour their heart and soul into and gets no traction. So you could do everything right, but not be lucky. And that's just the way things go. And the idea of pride is that I'm so great that I did this by my own will, that I'm perfect, that I didn't need anything else. You know, think about like an athlete when, you know, their team fought hard and they take all the glory for themselves. Like it's that sort of idea. It's that you're saying you're above others, that you're so much beyond others, and you have no humility in your success. It's really the worst trait in people. When you love yourself, you create evil. Yeah, it's very simply put, but there's certainly a layer of genius in there. But that's really what he's talking about. He's talking about pride.
We do good in
Think
the
of
last way.
like I think there's two types of selfishness. There's selfishness and there's selfishness for the sake of others. So like, you know, it's not bad to be selfish, but it's bad to be selfish for your own means. But like a lot of the work I do on myself, it's so that I can be a better person in other people's lives, so that I can give people more. I need to deal with my own baggage so that when somebody needs a little pick me up, then I can help them and I can do it in a way where I'm not saying, "Well, my life's bad too. You shouldn't be this way. You shouldn't be this way." Like, no. I'm going to deal with my own issues so that when you need help, I can help you more. I'm going to become a better person so that when you ask me to do something, I don't impart that pain or that issue onto you. How can you be in a relationship with somebody else if you are putting your own pain and suffering onto them? It's I need to be the best version of myself so that I can help others. You can't help others until you help yourself. That's how I view the world. But then there's the people that me, that I need more money, I need more fame, I need more wealth. Like I think there's selfishness, and then there's selflessness. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Try to say that. I
In
didn't
heaven
get it
city,
out.
then there will be freedom of will. Okay, this is a hard idea to understand. What does it mean to have freedom of will in the city of heaven? It means that in heaven, we will discard our bodies and only our souls will remain. The body is flawed because it's created out of dust, out of nothing. But the soul is perfect because it was breathed into by God. Okay? Once we are once we are freed of our bodies, we have no more desire. We don't want to have sex. We don't want to eat. We don't want to fight. Our emotions
So what do you explain right here? Why do you think monks fast? Why do you think monks are chaste? Why do you think monks don't speak? There's like a very like interesting principle here. It's that you're replicating God, and the closer you can get to not needing these bodily functions, and the closer you get away from these baser instincts, the closer you get to God in that sort of mindset. And then you have the Rasputin, or the Frankist view of things, where it's completely opposite. We're not gonna get into that, or the Crowley version of things.
will all be dissipated. Therefore, we will be perfect. Okay? And what will be left are to enjoy unfailingly the delight of eternal joys. Okay? We will be one with God and we will know in eternal bliss. That's what we're striving towards. Okay? Salvation. Everything on earth does not matter. Okay? So it is a negation of human will. It is a contempt.
Schopenhauer said the same thing. It's so weird how all these ideas overlap. Schopenhauer basically said that the will to live, essentially his force that embodies all of human nature, is a lot of times contradictory to our interest. And when we can get away from these baser interests, then we can be capable of higher thought and creative uh, masterpieces and aspirational aspects of humanity.
Contempt for human love. It is a distrust of all human agency. And these ideas are what will lead to the Dark Ages. Dante is trying to rebut Augustine and free us from the Dark Ages. Okay? So let's go to Dante. And remember, Dante will be a rebuttal to all these ideas. All right, let's go. This is the Imperium, the final level.
I don't think that's necessarily what led to the Dark Ages, but because there's really a profound statement in that is that deny the world so that you can be in tune with the infinite. And this is really what Walden says. This is really what Walden's talking about. That Thoreau took his life to the bare minimum of things, and he was able to appreciate his life so much more because he wasn't attached to worldly possessions. He wasn't attached to the end goal of things. He was able to experience the mythic in the mundane. There's a very profound nature to this. What led to the Dark Ages was the overstepping of religion and it becoming like instead of a system of enlightenment, it was a system of enslavement. It stopped people from thinking. It stopped people from learning. It stopped people from being inquisitive. You had to go to the priest instead of talk to God directly. You weren't able to think higher thoughts. You weren't able to question church doctrine. You weren't able to, you know, even get the bare means of life because there was plague and there was famine and there was you had to do all these things. Attachments, that's what's holding everything back. In a certain way, yes, in a certain way, no. I mean, do you not want to live your life with like do you want to be single your whole life? Do you not want to have kids? Do you not want to have a family? Do you not want to have friends? Do you not want to have clothes on your back? Like these ideas in a vacuum are good, but do you want to be enlightened? I don't. In fact, I'm afraid of becoming enlightened. There's like a good chance that I become like what's considered enlightened, and I don't want it. You know what I mean? I don't want to stop being me. Like, do you really want to become Buddha? I don't think that's a thing that most people even understand what that means. What, nothing but loneliness? Okay, good for you then. You watch too many Rick and Morty edits or something, right?
Level in the structure of the Divine Comedy. And Dante has a mission. His mission is to meet God and tell us who God is. Because God doesn't know, and neither does all the other angels around him.
Let me make a guess before. Okay, so all the great creatives in history, they come back to this idea that creativity is God, that creativity is the highest form of human expression. So let me just guess, because if Blake and Borges were so fascinated with this, that's going to be the conclusion.
Okay? And the reason why is if God is omniscient and omnipresent, if he knows everything and he is everywhere, then God, by definition, lacks an imagination. Okay? This is hard, I didn't understand, but I'll explain it, okay? God does not know who he is because he lacks an imagination. All right. So what's happening is this. Bernard.
Okay, so I'm seeing what he's saying, and that God's imagination is us. That's what he's going to say, and that's really what Blake says is that the human imagination is God. I'm so sick and tired of doing this. It's like you're doing this for everyone else, but not for you. Well, I mean, you just ask yourself what you're doing. In what way could you put more of the focus on yourself? You know what I mean? In what way can you fulfill the aspects of yourself that need to be fulfilled. The solution is just creativity. The solution is just going out into the world and experiencing new things, learning new things, getting better at new things. That's really what Jung offers a solution to the world. Because there's a certain aspect of everybody that's being unfulfilled, and Lord knows what it is. For me, I find everything I need in training physically, in stimulating my mind through reading, in expressing myself creatively through writing and YouTube and stuff like that. You would just love to get away from everything and live in a forest cabin and do absolutely nothing for the rest of your life. I mean, do you have the means to take a vacation and go to a cabin and experience that? I mean, maybe that's like really what you need right now, dude. Like maybe see if that's feasible. I mean, it can't be that expensive to find something remote and get away from things and see if that's really what you want, or go camping, or you know what I mean? And it's not even that you need to do it for the rest of your life. I promise you, if you even just go for a week, you're going to return to your life and feel completely refreshed. Because I think the reprieve we are seeking is never as intense as we're really thinking it will be. Like for me, I was like, I really want to be more creative with my life. I should read or watch Into the Wild. I read Into the Wild. I don't like it as much as Walden. The book the guy is talking about is Walden. Emerson's one of my favorite writers. I cite Emerson almost every day. Um, like honestly, Into the Wild kind of like it's like a tragic end of a man that took it too far. The whole thesis of Thoreau and the whole thesis of Emerson, it's not to obviously there's an aspect of going out and enjoying nature, but it's not the end all be all. What they're really telling you to do is find your nature, find the things that you like doing and do them. Break down your life, understand the things that are necessities for you and find that. This concrete jungle is just humanity going backwards. Yeah, for sure. I think we're really in a intellectual dark age. We really are. Like I genuinely think people today are stupider than people like 200 years ago, 300 years ago. Because like think there used to be like old wives' tales. People used to know like basic medicine. They used to know like how to prepare their food, how to get food. You know, you take away like the supply chain, me myself included, like I am not functioning. I'm like a animal that was born in a zoo. I can't sustain myself. Like if things went to shit, I'm very physically strong and very physically capable, but I don't have survival skills. I don't have weapons. I'm not a stockpile. I don't have a bunker. Like, you know what I mean? Like, could I survive if things went to shit? Probably not. It's like a very scary thought. Now, am I going to live my life in fear? No, I don't. Worst comes to worst, I could become like join a militia or something. There's always a way out, but it is what it is. But I certainly agree. We're definitely going backwards, and we're definitely getting away from what life really is. You know, we're at the point where we're inventing problems. We're at the point where there's a lack of inspiration, there's a lack of creativity, and we're fundamentally away from a lot of the things in life that are meaningful. You know, like think about like this, like I cringe every time I hear it. Every time I hear somebody say, "Oh, we need to return to the nuclear family. We need to return to this." You've already been so fucking psyoped that you want to return to a nuclear family. A nuclear family is a word created by people who wanted to sell more homes, people that wanted to sell more furniture, consumerism. You know, what happened to when generations upon generations families live together? That's what the elite do. That's what the really, really rich do. You've already been psyops. How is this like a traditional idea? Like, you know, the most well-mannered people that I've met grew up with more than just one generation in the household, had their grandparents in the household. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever met somebody that was raised with their grandparents? They have some of the best manners possible. They have some of the most appreciation for family possible. And it's like we've lost so much of what makes life worth living because we forget the simple things in search of this hustle bustle of life.
and Dante are together and they're staring at Mary because Bernard will invoke the
Necessity teaches you everything. I'm guessing you're saying like breaking your life down to the necessities teaches you everything. I think that's what you're saying, and I agree.
love of Mary to empower Dante to see God. Okay, so he's trying to channel Mary's energy to empower Dante. And not only is Bernard doing this, but everyone, the entire heaven is praying to Mary to empower Dante. Okay? All right. Virgin Mother, daughter of your Son, more humble and sublime than any creature, fixed gold decreed from all eternity. You are the one who gave to human nature so much nobility that its creator did not
Oh, this
disdain
is
his being
definitely
made its creature.
this is some Gnostic allegory. What's up, Zachariah? How's everything, man? I feel like it's been a while.
Okay, right away, what
When was the last time you were here? Was it last week? Has it been that long since I
you will
streamed?
see in Divine Comedy is paradox after paradox. Virgin Mother is a paradox, right? A mother who gives birth without having sex. Daughter of your Son is a paradox. A creature from its creator is also a paradox. And you'll see this in Divine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with that too. When you have to fight for your survival. I thought you were taking a more profound point. You should have just like agree with me. Because what I thought you were saying was when you break your life down to the bare necessities, that's where you learn about what life is about. And I thought you were going there. I thought you were like really getting to the thesis of Emerson or the thesis of Walden or really like a more holistic way of life. Then you took it there. You should just kept it. Probably like 2 weeks. I can't complain. Um, I don't know. Today, like I've just been really lucky today. A lot of good things happened to me today. And it's not like anything major, but like those days where just the little things go right and it feels like you're walking on sunshine. That was just how I was today. So it's nice. You know, I think it's really easy to dwell on like, oh, this isn't going right for me. This isn't going right for me. And we like don't count our blessings, but like I literally forgot to sign up for something. I saved money, and in fact, it's gonna benefit me even more because I didn't sign up for it. It's like it's just amazing, dude. Life is good right now. Like I don't know, I'm gonna ride this high until until whatever, but I'm feeling great right now. I hope you're feeling good as well.
Comedy all the time, these paradoxes. Then this is the paradox, okay? You are the one who gave to human nature so much nobility that its creator did not disdain his being made its creature. If we agree with Augustine and say and believe that everyone is born in
I don't think these are really paradoxes. I think this is like the entire like he's saying this is counter. Maybe it is. Maybe it's counter to church doctrine, but I don't think this is. I think this is very on brand for the really myth of Christianity, the myth of the virgin birth, is that we're all born imperfect, but he was born perfect so that he could take our sins, so that he could take our imperfection from this world. I don't think that's very
sin.
contradictory.
And we are.
Maybe if you think about it hard enough, but like it's like the same idea as like meditating. It's very difficult to meditate if you think hard about it. But if you just do it, it's very easy. That's the thing with paradoxes is that the harder you think about them, the more you will tie your tongue and the more you will confuse yourself. There's always a very simple truth in every paradox. Every good paradox, at least. I'm sure there's a paradox that doesn't make any sense. But every very complex paradox, there's a simple truth in there that you're meant to find. And that's really the beauty of paradoxes. That's really the beauty of these sorts of things that have been discussed and thought about for centuries upon centuries. Same thing I said earlier. You never step in the same river twice. You can come up with all sorts of examples where you try to find an exception that breaks this rule, but the truth is that everything's changing. You'll never recapture the last second. Even if everything seems correct, there's still going to be something off, and there's going to be some sort of change, and there's some sort of entropy, there's some sort of flame that is burning, and you can never really recapture what once was. And there's something beautiful in that. There's also something very scary about it, but
incapable of redeeming ourselves from our sin, then how to explain Mary, right? Mary gave birth to Jesus. If Mary had sinned, then God had sinned in him. How to explain that? Well, the only explanation is Mary gave birth without sin. Therefore, she cleansed herself of her sin before giving birth to Jesus. And how did she do that? A mother's love for her child, right? So this is what Dante is saying.
I like that point.
Love
Because think about it, like what is more pure, what is more perfect than a mother's love for their child? Like I don't think I could ever love my mother as much as she loves me. Like genuinely, I don't think whatever I do, whatever I say, I genuinely don't think I could ever feel the same way about her that she feels for me. It's very weird. And it's like it's almost like I don't know. It's
is without sin. Love cannot have sin. Now, I mean, you hear this and you're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Let's just say that I love this woman, okay? She's beautiful. And I say to her, I love you, will you marry me? And then she says to me, I will, but I want $10 million. So I go and I rob a bank, right? That's love, right?
do you think this is a true story from that?
What Don
I wish this was a true story. I wish this is like, yeah, this is how I met my wife.
is saying is, that's not love. That is not love. Ask yourself this question. If your mother and your child says to you, Mother, I only love you if you let me eat chocolate every day. Is that love? As a mother, you'll say,
Like genuinely, he's making a very strong point here. I really like this comparison. It's like, you know, I love my mother because she raised me because of this, but like she was the oh, I can't say it. To the tip of my tongue, I can't say it. Damn it. We'll just
say
go.
back to
Here
him,
we go.
I love you, therefore I will not allow you chocolate every day.
Her love is unconditional. I don't need to do anything. In fact, I could hate her and she would still love me. There's no strings attached to it. Where in some way, like because she raised me, because of this thing, because like there's some there's some transaction where with her it's pure, it's divine.
I care about your health.
Think about it that
I
way.
care about your happiness. That's what I care about. I don't want to degrade you. Okay, that's what Dante's saying here. Love is the ultimate power. All right? And because she cleansed herself, she has so much nobility that she was able to give birth to God. Okay? That's where nobility is. Nobility is not in being free of sin, but redeeming yourself from sin through sheer willpower, through love. Okay? Let's continue.
He explained this very good. Wow, I really enjoyed this explanation. Kudos to Professor Jang. Where's I can't remember who was slandering him a few weeks ago, but this is very impressive. This was above. He said it was like Reddit Wikipedia takes. This is well beyond that. I
All
think
right.
this is
This man, this is Dante,
better
of
than I
course,
could put it.
who from the deepest hollow in the universe, he came from hell, okay? Up to this height, has seen the lives of spirits one by one, now pleads, okay? He's been on this amazing spiritual journey. He's seen everyone. Through grace to grant him so much virtue that he may lift his vision higher still, may lift it toward the ultimate salvation. The ultimate salvation is God, right? But look at this phrase, vision higher still. Okay, what does it mean? It means, hey, you cannot see God. You have to imagine God.
This is like Kierkegaard's leap of faith. that there's nothing that can absolutely prove God. You can't conceive of him or it or whatever. I always hate when people put like a pronoun that I think it's because it's Elohim. It's both masculine and feminine, so it's meant to carry the masculine feminine essence and the essence of everything. And there's all sorts of esoteric interpretations of that. We're not going to get into that. It's a lot of that stuff's boring, and I don't like to talk about it anymore. But wow, I just destroyed my train of thought. Damn it! Hold on, we gotta go back.
God is something that you do not see. God is something that you imagine.
Okay, Kierkegaard's leap of faith. And what Kierkegaard's saying is that your faith will always be questioned, but it's a feeling, it's a calmness, it's an acceptance, and it's a knowing that is the greatest we can do. You're never going to get a sign that's so clear that's like you have to do this, but you're going to have a feeling. And in that moment, when you go with that gut feeling and you know in your heart that you're correct, you'll never be steered wrong. And this reminds me of that interview where the guy asks Carl Jung, "Do you believe in God?" And he's like, "I don't believe. I know." And there's something very powerful in that statement. You know, it's not enough to believe. It's something you have to feel. You'll never have proof of God. There'll never be a physical thing on paper that shows you that God is real, but there's feeling in your heart. There's an acceptance. There's a comfort. There's a faith that is beyond anything of this world. And that's really what Dante's tapping into with creativity. You'll see a lot of like atheist, agnostic creatives that capture the same emotion, that capture the same feeling. You can see it in Joyce. You can see it in Nietzsche. Nietzsche has this as well. Nietzsche has this like Ubermensch, this perfect ideal, which is really just you could just take the Christ symbol and make it the same. And Zarathustra he uses, who was just Christ before Christ, basically.
Through your will. All right? Next one, please. Thank you. And I, who never burned for my own vision more than I burned for yours. This is radical. This is Bernard. He is the highest of the angels. And he says, his vision, I burn for his vision. I want to know the truth. And only this man, Dante, can give us the truth, even though we are angels. Only Dante, a mortal man, has access to truth. We angels do not have access to truth.
Angels didn't have free will. Angels like kind of had to carry out the will of God. And really, the profound point here is that Dante went to the depths of hell, and now he's in heaven. And thus, since he has the experience of hell and he has the experience of heaven, he has the knowledge of things. You know, how can you tell? Oh, I'm trying to. What is light without dark? What conception do you have of either without the other? And it's Dante's knowledge of both that gives him this wisdom. How does one not lose faith when bad things happen to them despite having faith? That's the entire point of faith. I don't mean to make it that simple, but that's really the point of it. Is that you are going to be tested. That faith is not faith without you being in some way challenged. Does that make sense? Like if your life was perfect and you're like, I believe in God, it's super easy to believe it that way. But it's when you've experienced the hardships, when you experience the pain, and you want to give up, and you keep steadfast, and you don't rebuke God, and you don't rebuke these higher powers, and you stay steadfast in your faith, where it really means something. Does that make any sense? The words aren't coming to me, but that's really the idea there. It's that for faith to have any depth, any meaning, it has to be tested. It doesn't mean anything to say, uh, I believe the sky is blue if everyone else believes the sky is blue. But if you are going to get killed for saying the sky is blue and you say it anyway, then that's a devotion of faith that shows that you're willing to die on that hill. That means something to you, that has depth, that it's not hollow. It's very easy to say the popular thing. It's very difficult to say the thing that will get you killed. That's really, it's a very tricky topic to explain. I'd much rather do it through poetry, but
This is radical and revolutionary. Okay? And honestly, if the Catholic Church actually could understand any of this, then Dante his manuscripts would have been burned. Okay? This is a revolutionary idea. Do offer you all my
I would argue these ideas aren't revolutionary. They were already there. I think there's a lot of these interpretations are just my own. I don't know if it's because I have collectively got them from Dante or if I have read them from somewhere else, but I think a lot of these things are really there. It's just they've been altered through years of dogma and stigmatism and fear and anxiety and all sorts of institutions imparting their own necessity and justifying their own reason for existence.
prayers and pray that they may not fall short. That with your prayers you may disperse all the clouds of his mortality, so that the highest joy be his to see.
So what I'm really trying to say is it's like think of a manager. What a manager has to do is, a manager that has salesmen, like really what does the manager do? They don't do much. Maybe they focus the people, maybe they do some micromanaging, but like most managers don't do anything aside from justify their own existence because in fact their salary is just a net negative on the book. So they have to come up with all sorts of numbers. They have to say all sorts of things. They have to have all sorts of meetings to show how effective and how important they are. It's the same thing with a church. If you had these ideas, really what Dante's doing is he's taking the ideas of the Bible and putting them into the story and showing the average person that they too can have this relationship with God, that they too can have this absolving of their sin. And it's taking out the middleman, it's taking out the priest, it's taking out the church, it's taking out the institution. It's taking away the entire church's power, the entire system's power. What does the church do on Sunday? Uh, Maybe your church is different, maybe your church is better, but a lot of it is this is what is happening and this is my interpretation and this is what we're meant to do. And it's like even even watching my stream right now, we're taking these ideas that are higher ideas, but through my explanation, you're getting some affinity for me. Through you interpreting these ideas through me, I'm gaining some sort of stature. I'm gaining some sort of prestige. Now put this for hundreds and thousands of years, and you have all that power. You're the middleman. Imagine you couldn't seek out this information for yourself. You had to only get it through me. What kind of power would that give me? What kind of influence would that give me? What kind of importance would that give me? That Dante's taking that away from the church. That's really what he's saying. That's why these ideas are revolutionary. It's because it's putting the power in the hands of the people. That's his point.
The clouds of his mortality basically means his fear, his doubt. Okay? This too, O Queen, who can do what you would, I ask of you, that after such a vision, his sentiments preserve their perseverance. Preserve the perseverance just means he's able to remember what he saw. Okay? So imagination is one thing. You can imagine God, but then you must turn this imagination into a memory. And what is radical about this is that our most advanced neuroscience, our most advanced scientists who understand how the brain works, they will tell
They don't understand shit. Neuroscience and scientists, they don't. This again, this goes back to these ideas, and I'll probably end the stream because I feel myself losing my voice, and it's 11. I'm starting to get tired, but I'm hungry. But the problem with modern day science is that it focuses too much on what we can observe and not what we can find through intuition. And this is something that Einstein said. Einstein said that all scientific discoveries come from intuition, but are proved by analysis, by the analytical side of our brain. And this is why science will never be able to explain ideas such as consciousness, such as how our brain works, such as how our stomach works. Some of these ideas are intuitive. Some of these ideas you have to connect the dot through creativity and not through analysis. Some of these ideas are far too complex for any computer model to understand. It's poetry. Life is both a combination of poetry and philosophy. And it's the people that combine those. It's the people that understand life. It's the people that are able to capture the infinite. Things both are and aren't at the same time. The duality of things.
Tell you, this is exactly how the brain works. You imagine a world, and then over time, you turn the world into a story, and the story becomes your memory. Okay? So, 800 years before, Dante knew our neuroscience, how our brain actually works.
I don't know about that. We're 22 minutes in this. We might finish this tomorrow. I think this is going to be a good place to end it. If you guys were here, thank you for a good, fun stream. We got into some very interesting topics, and this video was really good at giving me a lot of tangents to go off on. I feel like there was like a 20-minute period where I didn't even play the video, so that's always a good sign. There are things that we shouldn't know. There's things that we'll never know. I mean, who's to say what we should and shouldn't know? It's all about what we do with the information. Consciousness is one of them. Consciousness is something that's been understood by a handful of people, and those handful of people have always been dangerous to the powers that be. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, thanks for being here. I'm gonna stream again Friday. Not sure what time. Hopefully earlier than this. But yeah, very fun stream. We might finish this on Friday, might not. Uh, depends what I find in the meantime and what I want to talk about. This is very good. Um, yeah, love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.